All right, guys, this is a 2013 Tesla Model S. I'm bleeding the brakes. I just finished doing the pads, rotors, and hub bearing assemblies on this. If you're curious on how to do that on this car, I'll leave a link to those videos down below. But I'm just finishing up the brake job on this, and I'm flushing the brake fluid system and doing a bleeding of the brake fluid. The brake fluid on this is 10 years old. It's kind of dark. You can kind of see this is some of the old brake fluid here. Kind of that dark yellow color. It's pretty straightforward. I have this little machine here. It does a pretty good job. This is what I use for most of my brake jobs here. It's called the Topsider. It's a vacuum pump. So it creates a vacuum and it will suck fluid. So it's good for sucking out fluids, oils, hydraulic fluids. So first step, what you want to do, open up the hood. I have all 4 wheels off. This makes it a lot easier. You can take each wheel off individually if you need to, but I have them all off already because I've been doing the brake job. So if you take off the hood, take off these panels here. This cap here is for the brake fluid. So what I do is I create a suction. I pinch off the tube. There's a little pinch tube right there. I pinch that off, create a vacuum. I pump that, create a vacuum. Then I put the end of the straw into here, and I suck out all of the old brake fluid. So I sucked out all the old brake fluid, and then I've replaced it with brand new .3 synthetic brake fluid. So that's all filled back up. And then I'm going to show you the procedure on this front brake here. I've already done all 3 other, bled the system, I flushed it out. I want to get all the old fluid out is what the purpose of this, and getting any air out of the system. So the procedure is the exact same for all 4 corners. I'll just show you on this front one. You do want to start in the rear. Start at the rear passenger, then rear driver, and then passenger, and then do driver last. That way you use as little fluid as possible, and you're sucking all the old fluid out the back that way, and then out that way, and then you have new fluid here, so it requires less to get it. So it's just something that's recommended, is start with the rear wheels first for bleeding and flushing the system. Tesla uses a Brembo caliper. This is a 4-piston Brembo caliper. It has a bleed screw on the outside and on the inside, so we've got to actually bleed both sides of this. That's the same on all 4 wheels. Yours might just have one bleed screw here. This one's a 11 millimeter size. These bleed screws have these little caps, these rubber caps. Just get some pliers, pull them off on each side. And then what I do is I get a 11 millimeter socket, because you don't want to like break these off. You don't want to round these off. So I want to get a socket on here and then just crack these loose. Sometimes they can be corroded if you haven't been opened in a while. Crack them open like that, and then I want to close it. So I just wanted to make sure that I can get it open. And I want to do the same thing on this inside one here. Cracked it open, and I want to close it now. Now I'm getting this tube extension. This is just a piece of rubber tube I have on the end of my my vacuum pump. And so what I'll do is I'll put my open-ended wrench on, and then I'll put my tube on top of that. Okay. Now with it closed, I'm going to create a vacuum. And I create a vacuum by having the hose closed off. You can close it off here, or you can just have it sucking against the closed valve bleed screw on the caliper. And so I'm just going to pump this probably, I don't know, 20, 25 times. This will start creating a vacuum, and then I'll be able to open up the bleed screw, and that vacuum will then suck out all the old fluid into this canister. I want to do this until I start feeling some resistance. That means the vacuum's created. Okay, right about there. Okay, so now with the vacuum in the line here, I can then open up my bleed valve, crack that open. I only want to turn about that much. You can kind of see this yellow fluid coming out, light yellow. The new fluid is like clear, so we want to make sure when this runs clear, we know we've flushed out all the old fluid. So while we have the vacuum pump on that, pumping that out, what I want to do is I want to come up here to the reservoir and take this cap off. And I want to make sure that I'm slowly keeping this reservoir full. We don't want to suck air into the system, so we want to make sure I'm keeping this reservoir full with new brake fluid. Carefully pour in, just keep it topped up. See, it's right there at the top. Because this is the last one I've done, most of the lines are all flushed out, and so this one, because the the brake line from the reservoir to here is very short, it's not going to take a lot of fluid to flush that out. Slowly turn and tighten that. And then I want to do the same thing on the back side to bleed this second side of the caliper. I'll slip the rubber tube over the bleed valve, and then I'm just going to give this a few pumps just to create the vacuum. I lost a little bit, but there's still quite a bit of vacuum in there. So now, I'm just going to crack this open, kind of a quarter turn. And because I bled most of the fluid through this piston, really it's just bleeding out any fluid that's left on this side. So it's really not going to take a lot. I'm just going to let that go for 10-15 seconds or so. And then I also want to make sure I'm checking my reservoir, make sure that's not running dry. So it's almost done here, and I want to make sure I just refilled this to the top. The fluid's right at the top. There is a max fill line. Let's see, it says max right there. So what I want to do is I want to stop suction when the fluid gets down to this max fill line. So it's up to the top. It's going to bleed down just a little bit more. Once it's down to the max line, I'll be able to stop my suction, close off the valves, close off my bleed valves, put the caps back on, and I'll be good to go. Just top that off. I got my fluid down about right there, right at the max level. So I put my cap on. I shut my valve off. Just want to tighten that. And I can take my hose here, make it all my fluid that'll flow down into my tank here. Put these little caps on. These are all little caps that are going to keep dirt and debris out of the bleed valves. Put all those back on. And that's the procedure to bleed the brakes. So again, the hardest part of this is really just getting the car jacked up, taking the wheel off. You want to be careful with these that you don't break these off. If you're using an open-ended wrench like this on that, you could round those off. So I like to use, for the first time breaking these free, use the socket. Just crack it open with the socket so that way you're wrenching on all sides of this bolt. Then you can use your open-ended wrench here with the tubing, and then you can suck right out of it. This is a great little tool for things like this. I'll leave a link to this down below, also to the brake fluid. Guys, if you're interested in the full brake job on this car, see the link down below. I'll leave a link to the videos on that. But anyways, thanks for watching the video. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.